funeral with the ex-councillor Potts, and represented all of us at that. It was during the election period, and she was 94, and she served as a councillor for Costins Ward from 1990 to 2002. So some of you may have known her. The passing also of Councillor Derek Saad, who served as a Perivale Ward councillor from 1974 to 1978, and then Pitshanger Ward from 1978 to 1982. Derek was 91 years old, and he's due to be buried tomorrow, and our thoughts are with his friends and family. So if we can all keep them both in our prayers. Can I say you, I know, have been incredibly busy pounding the streets and very, very difficult, and but quite successful. I'm allowed to say that. I think that's not being too party political. So I've been busy with doing other things. I've had a Windrush Day reception in the parlour, an Armed Forces Day on Ealing Green. I've had reservists and veterans to tea in the parlour. I've been to Hanwell Carnival. I've been to the Acton Carnival, the Ealing Beer Festival, and I wasn't drinking any beer, but my husband had some in my place. I've been to the Ealing Sports Award at William Perkinson's High School. I've been to Cadence, which was celebrating the music in the borough. I've seen so many beautiful events with our young people. We can be very proud of them and all the people that help them. I went to Norwood Green this Saturday and bought some raffle tickets, and Councillor Jasmine Anand brought in a gift that I won at the raffle. So thank you very much for that, and I hope I was supporting a good cause. I've been to religious events at the temple, the Hindu temple up in Greenford, St Benedict's, and I've been to lots of other places connected to children and events. And I really think all of us can be proud of what happens in our schools, and there are lots of work that goes on that many of us don't know about. We haven't been able to obviously have any fundraising events because you were all too busy, which I quite understand, but hoping in September we'll do that and we'll send out save the dates. Of course, one of the most important things I did was being returning officer for the general election. And can I also congratulate the people who won in this borough, all of them, including Deirdre, who we're losing as a member, Deirdre Costigan, and I got her name right because I didn't always used to, and it used to annoy her, and I didn't do it on purpose. So we've got Deirdre elected now. We've got Councillor Anderson, who I'm losing as a colleague, and I shall miss him because we'll both miss him, and he'll be a great loss to Ealing, but we've got him elected. We've also got Greg, who obviously been held up tonight, and Greg Stafford, and we congratulate him on winning. We're also very pleased that we've got Mr Murray up in Ealing North, and we've got Rupert in Ealing Acton Central. So congratulations to all of them. And I know you've all worked very hard. On item 6, there are no petitions from members of the public tonight. Are there any petitions from members of the council? I don't think so. So now I think we come on to questions from members of the public. You will have seen that there were 3 names on your agendas. One of those persons refused to give their address or details to our monitoring officers, so they're not being allowed to ask a question because I don't think they really lived in the borough. So first of all, I think we've got Mari Lowe, who many of us know. Mari? Oh, don't worry, Mari. Somebody might come and help you. She's going to be asking a question to Councillor Hassini.
Madam Mayor, distinguished councillors.
You have 3 minutes, Mari.
Okay.
And in fact, tonight we've got a new system. There's going to be a clock, and instead of Anthony having to time it, there's going to be a big clock that comes up that tells you whether it's near 3 minutes or not. Okay, Mari, off you go.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor, distinguished councillors. Briefly, the context of my question relates to an incident I observed more than a year ago. I heard shouting coming from the Oaks shopping centre on Acton High Street. And as I drew nearer, I could see the elderly gentleman shouting had wet himself because the toilets were closed. He was taking his embarrassment out on the security guard, who did not react. Kudos. Since then, with the support of Madam Mayor herself, a cross-party group of local councillors and the excellent regeneration manager for Acton, we have been attempting to get the leaseholders, NFU Mutual, to open the facilities when the centre is open. So my question is, what is Ealing Council's policy on public toilets?
Yep. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mary, for your question. So just generally, the policy on public toilets is related within the borough is the S6 of the London Plan. This states that large-scale developments that are open to the public and large areas of public realm should provide and secure the future management of a range of toilet facilities which consider the needs of all residents. This includes free publicly accessible toilets suitable for a range of users, including people with disabilities, families and young children. And public policy states that these toilets should be available during opening hours or 24 hours a day when access to the toilets is an area of public realm. You just asked about the Oaks, and I know we've been in correspondence about this. So they are a vital facility for local residents in Acton. But due to various challenges around antisocial behaviour, the toilet facilities have been locked. That's correct. The Oaks made this decision in consultation with the Met Police on the basis that they can be open for customers upon request. And I understand that that was a bit of an issue because they weren't being open as regularly as we would have liked. But the teams here, the officers have met with the Oaks management and they highlighted the concerns and that the phone numbers weren't being reliably or promptly answered. As a result, the Oaks are now installing an intercom system, and they've actually installed it a couple of days ago now. And we hope now we'll learn in the next few days and weeks how it's working. But hopefully this will better manage and ensure that the facilities are open more promptly. However, I do recognise that there's the range of wider concerns, including issues with the signage, and this is why the council, the team at the council, are supporting the management at the Oaks to set up a forum. And in this forum, residents, tenants and users of the building can discuss challenges facing the shopping centre and establish ways forward. And I think they're working closely with the Oaks to bring this forward, and hopefully you'll get involved and other residents will be involved.
Thank you, Councillor Hashani.
Do you have a supplementary then?
I do have a brief one, Madam Mayor, if that's possible. Is it possible for members and officers to look at the fire regulations for this and other shopping centres in the borough to determine why there cannot be a security desk in the public area in the Oaks? That's apparently why there's so much ASB. Fire regulations are held by building control, but they're not accessible to the public.
So it'd be very difficult for the council to answer because you didn't have forehand knowledge of a question like that. But
yes, it's a supplement.
Yes.
I'm very happy to have a written or a reply if you wish, Councillor Hashani. There's no intention to make life difficult here.
No, absolutely not. And look, the point you've raised, thank you for raising that, and I will take that forward. We'll work with the relevant teams. And as I say, let's work together with the Oaks, with the Metropolitan Police and everyone involved through the forum to make sure that, you know, things are being done the right way and that we can open the toilets and actually, you know, work around the issues around antisocial behaviour as well, because we want to get that resolved alongside everyone who's using the facilities, alongside the Met Police and everyone else, like the residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hashani.
Thank you very much for coming along, Mari. Thank you. And the next question is from Matthew Mellor to Councillor Hashani as well. So it's her night tonight. Oh, sorry, Councillor Nand. Sorry, Councillor Nand.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My wife is registered disabled. She's a wheelchair user, and she's one of hundreds of people a year in Ealing who are victim of blue badge thefts. My question is, what is Ealing Council doing to tackle blue badge thefts and support the victims of crime?
May I, Madam Mayor? Yes, go ahead. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mellor. And I'm really sorry to hear that your wife has been a victim of the Blue Badge burglary. And thank you for your question. And sadly, the theft and fraudulent use of the badges is on the rise, but nationally and in our borough too. Blue badge theft is far from a victimless crime. Blue badges are a lifeline for a number of people in the community, and those using blue badges illegally robs their users of their independence. That is why Ealing Council are really committed to taking a tough action against those who commit blue badge fraud, and in recent months more than 20 people have been taken to court for this fraudulent blue badge theft. And we know that the blue badges are so important to users. As you've mentioned, your wife is disabled and is a wheelchair user. So those who do commit the blue badge fraud are actually punished for that. So we believe that it's so important so that we can always work hard to replace the blue badges that are reported stolen as quickly as possible. And in addition, despite limited resources, officers are really working hard to prevent blue badge theft from happening in the first place. So we offer a free resident parking permit, which allows residents to park in the zone where they live without needing to display a blue badge in their vehicle. If a resident has a dedicated blue badge bay outside their property, we offer a disabled bay permit. We also advise blue badge holders who have been a victim of theft to consider purchasing a blue badge lock once they receive their new badge, as this has been evident to deter future theft. Furthermore, Mr. Mellor, officers regularly carry out patrols in areas of the borough with other councils to tackle any blue badge misuse. This applies to stolen, cancelled or deceased badges which are being used. To help us win in this fight, we also need your help. That's why we also encourage residents who suspect someone of using a blue badge fraudulently to report this to the council straight away, whether it's online or giving us a quick call.
Thank you. Do you have a supplementary at all, Mr. Mellor?
I do.
Let's go ahead.
Well, thank you very much. Haringey Council have a virtual resident blue badge permit scheme that has cut vehicle crime by blue badge thefts by 68%, which allows residents to display something else which the officers can use electronically against their number plate. And Croydon Council has a companion badge which operates in a similar way. Would Ealing Council consider introducing these schemes so that people don't have to display their blue badges away from their own property? Thank you for your comment about the resident parking, but it would cut thefts anywhere, parking anywhere in the borough. Thank you.
May I?
Hand, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mellor, again for your supplementary. And you're correct, some London councils have introduced the companion passes, which work alongside the blue badge. But what happens with that is you are tied down to a registration plate rather than an individual. These only work in the designated boroughs. So we can actually look at this scheme, but we haven't really worked on this. But I'm quite happy to take this back to the officers to see if this will suit the residents who are disabled and have blue badges, and see if these companion passes will help them alongside the blue badges. Once again, it will be restricted to the registration of the vehicle, not the individual.
Thank you very much, Councillor Anand. Thank you for your question, Mr. Mellor.
Thank you.
Now we have 30 minutes for members' questions. If people can be as succinct as possible. The first question is from Councillor Malcolm to Councillor Donnelly.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Could the portfolio holder please outline why a year has passed with no progress since the administration committed to publish an online FOI request log in June of last year, following the Lib Dem motion on this topic?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I shall try to be succinct in breach of normal habit, although I do feel as though I'm in an episode of the Crystal Maze, looking at the tyranny of the countdown clock. And thank you. I had written thank you, Councillor Steed, who was the original asker of the question, but thank you, Councillor Malcolm. I'm sure Councillor Malcolm will remember that there was a debate initiated by a Lib Dem motion in June of 2023, but the motion that was actually passed committed the council voluntarily to explore options to better allow residents to access information about their council, including potentially introducing its own freedom of information disclosure log. I think we can all agree, just as after 14 years of Tory chaos have come to an end, we can celebrate. We can look forward to a government that's honest and transparent. And as this administration is very much committed to be honest, transparent and inclusive, we are committed to publish a freedom of information log that is accessible to all. But this is no small undertaking. Our Information Governance Department has been working very hard in conjunction with the ICTC team to complete advanced testing on a new system using artificial intelligence. This will enable a wide range of redacted answers to previous FOI inquiries, freedom of information inquiries, to be searched. Initially, this will be used internally to ensure proper GDPR compliance before being rolled out to the public. This will then provide an accessible system rather than a simple list, which would have been unmanageably large given the number of freedom of information requests that we receive these days, some from far afield, some from closer to home, and it would have made it hard to access information that residents rightly want to be able to see. We expect to have this complex exercise completed and to have published the log by the end of this calendar year.
Would you like to ask a supplementary? Go ahead, Councillor Malcolm.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It is a shame that it's 2015. Although you do refer to an AI solution, which is probably an improvement on some of the other boroughs, it is a shame that it's got to this stage. So can I ask, in terms of the internal testing, who will be testing that? Is it just staff? Is it councillors or selected members of the public to get a thorough use of that system?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, I think I said the FOI team and the ICT team will be operating together to make the system work. It'll be tested internally by officers to ensure that it's working properly and then rolled out to the public. I'm not sure that I was ambiguous in that, but apologies if I was.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Councillor Kamaljit called Nagpal to I think I've got two different things written down here. Is it Councillor Kamaljit Nagpal? Are you expecting to ask a question now? No. Sorry? Answer it. So it's Councillor Midder to you, I think. Is it Councillor Midder? Would you like to ask?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can the portfolio holder provide an update on the status of the implementing of the real living wages for the care workers, please? Thank you very much.
I think it's Councillor Mason to answer. Go ahead.
Yes,
Sorry.
thank you, Madam Mayor. I rise in absence of Councillor Newstub, who is winging her way back safely from Rome on a delayed aircraft, and I'm hopeful she might even arrive, but if she doesn't, I'm here. We are absolutely delighted to provide an update on the implementation of the real living wage as an administration that set out from the very first day our commitment to be in a position by the end of the administration to sign up to the Unison Ethical Care Charter. So since we began implementing that policy in 2022, we've seen 75 home care agencies, 2 extra care services, and more than 250 personal assistants benefiting from the real living wage. That equates to about 2,500 domiciliary care workers in receipt of the real living wage. And I pay testament to the work of Councillor Blacker in the portfolio as it was then. He and I were able to meet with those care workers to really hear from them the impact that had happened to them in terms of their ability to pay their bills and really not just survive in a city like London, but also to thrive. We also know that as an administration that we need to extend that support for the real living wage right across the care sector. We know that in nursing homes, that is a particular challenge, given the number inside the London Borough of Ealing, and given that so many people from outside of Ealing come to make Ealing their home in their later years. But we are really proud to be able to confirm that Minstercare, who are our PFI contracted provider of 4 of our care homes, are a living wage employer. That equates to about 20% of the overall care home workforce of some 330 staff. And through the West London Alliance, we are rolling out a new tier system within our direct payment system, which enables us to distinguish from now on between tier 1 and tier 2 companies, tier 1 that pay the real living wage. And we will therefore use our procurement ability, the fact that Ealing has in its possession a way to shake the market to push people towards doing what is the right and honourable thing, which is paying absolutely everybody in this country, and certainly everybody in this borough, a real living wage.
Would you like to ask a supplementary, Councillor Midder?
No.
No. Would anybody else from the Labour group like to ask? Councillor in the back row.
Right, can the portfolio holder share the impact that implementing the real living wage has had on staff retention and recruitment on the care sector?
Thank you, Councillor Kingston. I think we have known for a very long time that the experience of care workers, not just in our borough, but also nationally, is one in which they feel undervalued and underpaid. It's why the Unison Ethical Care Charter is so important, not just in terms of ensuring the real living wage, but giving pride and dignity to people in the workforce. Now, we know from our own direct engagement and also through the feedback through those companies now paying the real living wage that we've seen not only boosts in productivity and motivation amongst care workers, but also we've seen mental health and well-being significantly rise in those companies too. It is enhancing their quality of life, but it's also strengthening the fabric of our communities because people are able to use that real living wage to live in a cohesive community in which they access the things that they need. Implementation isn't just about fairness, it's also about the sustainability of the sector. We know that we have a crisis in care workers in terms of people who are able to be in that workforce. And I'm afraid it's only going to get more challenging before it gets better. Hopefully, with a Labour government now in control of this country and our future, we will be able to put care work on the pedestal that it needs to be. These are important people caring for often the most vulnerable people in our society. And it's right that they have dignity in work. It is right that they have the real living wage. And it is right that they have the status that they so richly deserve. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Kingston, because I only know you as Ian, suddenly your surname went from my mind. So apologies for that. Councillor Kumar would like to ask a question to Councillor Blacker.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Would the portfolio holder please state the size of the Ealing Primary School intake in September 2024 as against the expected size in September 2025?
Absolutely, Madam Mayor. Our forecasted primary school reception intake for September 2024 is 3,728 for Councillor Gallant, who's busy scribbling. And the forecasted intake for December 2025 is 3,627. He's got that. Currently for September 2024, 3,570. Got that? Good. Have been accepted at Ealing Primary Schools with 122 places under offer, 53 of which are double offers, meaning these children have also another offer for another primary school. That's 122 and 53, Councillor Gallant.
Councillor Kumar, do you want to ask a supplementary?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I was wondering if there should be a review of the sizes and numbers of primary schools in the borough.
Madam Mayor, as Councillor Kumar probably knows, we annually take a report to Cabinet looking at schools place forecasting, and we will continue to do so on an annual basis.
Thank you. Councillor Gallant to Councillor Hassini.
Well, first of all, actually, I wanted to congratulate Councillor Ashton on her accession to the cabinet. And I've lost the wordings down there, but the question is she actively pursuing the Ealing Lido project?
Yeah. The short answer is yes. I'm delighted to confirm that the delivery of the outdoor swim facility in the borough very much remains a commitment of this administration. As you're aware, Councillor Gallant, we've got exciting plans in the works for the delivery of a new regional park running through the heart of the borough, and we've been working hard to develop these plans. And as part of this work, we are currently reviewing preferred locations for the Lido, and therefore I can assure you that we are very much actively pursuing the project, and will continue to do so through the creation of our ambitious regional park. Thank you.
Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Gallant?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I ask, in the spirit of openness, whether the council would elaborate on which sites are being considered for the Lido?
As I say, at the present, we are considering the Lido as part of the regional park, and if there is any update, I will share that with you happily. But that's that for now.
Thank you. As you know, I have this tendency to go too fast, and I must remember to be calm and go slower. I did jump ahead. Councillor Hota wants to ask a question of Councillor Blacker.
Thank you. Can the portfolio holder provide an update on the recent Ofsted inspection?
Thank you, Councillor Zahoud. I absolutely can. So councillors remember that 5 years ago, our last full ILACS inspection graded our children's services as requiring improvement, which was a step backwards. It was demoralising and represented a significant challenge to a service under the pressure of Tory austerity and increasing demand and complexity. It would take the unity and resolve of our corporate leaders, including the leader of the council, the chief executive, portfolio holder, and the strategic director of children's services, and their passionate dedication to driving performance and practice standards across children's services to rectify. Our social workers would need tenacity in building strong, effective relationships with parents. Their visit records would need to be skillfully and sensitively written to the child, with profound care and professionalism underpinning their work. Not a small ask. That is, however, exactly what Ofsted say they found when they came back between the 15th of April and the 3rd of May. And I'm delighted to announce this evening that Ealing is once again rated good by Ofsted. The timer hasn't paused which it should, for the applause. I would like to extend my thanks to Councillors Mason and Nagpal for their political leadership in this time, and to the Chief Executive, Strategic Director of Children's Services, and every single social worker, team leader, and all the other officers working hard for delivering this outcome. And while we celebrate this success, we remain acutely aware there is still work to be done to further enhance our services, particularly in the area of early help and protection, where additional action is required. And an inspection result isn't the end of a journey. It's just a milestone along the way. We will continue working hard to give our young people the best, fairest start in life, crucial not only for their own futures, but the future of our entire communities. There is so much potential amongst our young people, and we want to ensure that we create an environment where they can thrive. And as we come back to the refreshed council delivery plan for the year in a few months' time, there'll be a lot more to say on that.
Thank you. Is there a follow-up supplementary question, Councillor Hota? Anyone else on the Labour group? Yes, Councillor Raza in the back.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can the portfolio holder share an update on the council's offer for care leavers in the borough?
I'm very pleased to report progress on the pledges made at last year's Care Summit. Firstly, the mentoring MCR project is underway with the recruitment process in full swing, and we aim to start our first mentoring sessions in September or October, benefiting around 140 young people annually, which is designed to boost engagement in education and training and employment through community-based mentorship. We've collaborated with the Jamal Edwards Self-Belief Trust, focusing on providing a variety of community youth options for care leavers. This includes mentoring, activities, work placements in the music and arts industries, and semi-independent living provisions. This partnership aims to offer our care leavers unique opportunities to explore their interests and build their skills. Additionally, we have secured a 50% reduction in travel costs on buses and trams for our care leavers, which is already in effect, and we've implemented a streamlined process to update TfL fortnightly, ensuring eligible care leavers receive their discounts as promptly as possible. Our Care Leavers Takeover Day, set for National Care Leavers Week, will continue again this year in October, building on last year's success, where 6 young people secured apprenticeships within the council. And we're optimistic about matching or exceeding that number for 24-25, providing valuable work experience and career opportunities for our care leavers. Housing remains a priority, and we've increased our annual offer of social housing to 30 units for this year and continue to operate quarterly housing surgeries at the Horizons drop-in service. Our housing repairs champion continues to ensure that care leavers receive prompt and efficient repair services, significantly enhancing their living conditions. These pledges are part of our broader plan to provide robust support to care leavers, helping them to achieve independence and success. Our progress has been positively recognised, and with all this great work, it's only right that Ofsted has rated us as good in this area. We're committed to providing high quality support and opportunities for our care leavers, ensuring they have the resources and encouragement they need to thrive.
Thank you, Councillor Blacker. And we then come on to Councillor P. Anand asking a question of Councillor Kamaljit Nagpal.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening, everyone. Could the portfolio holder please update us with the council's supporting job creations in the borough? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anand, for your question. In May of 2022, we set out our 3 top priorities: fighting inequality, tackling the climate crisis, and creating good jobs. Over the last 2 years, we've made fantastic progress. With a focus on jobs-led growth, we've collaborated closely with our local business community, creating those good and well-paid jobs that our residents need and deserve. We've created almost 5,000 good and well-paid jobs for our residents, so that people working in the borough can earn the wages they need to put a roof over their head, food on the table, and raise a family in our borough. We've also created 1,000 new apprenticeship opportunities for people across our 7 towns, offering them a different route into those good and well-paid jobs that we're creating and providing them with an opportunity to earn while they learn. When it comes to training, our residents have achieved over 6,000 qualifications and training programme graduations as we upskill and reskill local people so that local businesses have access to a diverse and capable workforce right here in Ealing. We're working closely with our partners to ensure that we take full advantage of the outstanding infrastructure and regeneration works that we have right on our doorstep, collaborating with the GLA, OPDC, Heathrow Airport, and HS2 to ensure that Ealing residents get their fair share of the good jobs these employers create and that the economic growth they bring is felt across all of our 7 towns. We've also just published 2 new key plans for economic growth in the borough. Our jobs and skills strategy, outlining our focus on growing new sectors of our economy, such as the creative sectors, taking advantage of our borough's rich cultural history, and life sciences, leveraging Imperial College and their emerging plans for the West Tech Corridor. And our new plan for growing Ealing's economy after 6 p.m. With almost 1 in 5 workers in Ealing working in roles during the evening and nighttime, we want to ensure that their needs are met, as well as providing our residents with better access to public services and social and cultural opportunities. And now, with a Labour government, a Labour London Mayor, and a Labour Council, a joined-up approach is sure to deliver a stable and growing economy that will deliver prosperity for businesses and workers in Ealing.
No, Madam Mayor.
I think Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Does the portfolio holder share my excitement about the new Labour government's plans for creating high quality, well-paid and secure jobs for people working in Britain?
Thank you, Councillor Martin, for your question. The King's speech last Wednesday was full of good news for those working in Britain. During the recent election campaign, the Labour Party was very clear about wanting to make sure that work paid. And that is exactly what we have now heard. By removing the age bands on the minimum wage, the labour of all those over 18 can be treated equally when it comes to pay. A ban on exploitative zero-hour contracts so that people are free from the uncertainty of insecure work, not knowing when their next shift will be or how many hours they'll get a chance to work, and protections for employees from unfair dismissal from day one on that job that they've got, protecting workers from rogue bosses and providing them with certainty about their work. The government also has plans for a national jobs and careers service to get people back into work, home building and green initiatives that will create hundreds of thousands of jobs across the country, and reforms to post-16 education to ensure that the next generation are taught the valuable skills they need to make them competitive in the global jobs market. Measures like these are key to tackling poverty in Britain. Poverty brought on by 14 years of Tory incompetence and inaction. With a Labour government, the rights and wages of workers in Britain are moving right to the very top of the agenda so that people across the UK can finally earn a fair wage for a fair day's work without the fear of losing their job or not knowing when their next shift might be. In Ealing, Labour have already proven that this approach works, creating thousands of good, well-paid jobs for our residents and a focus on boosting wages for workers through our Living Wage initiative. And I know that with a Labour government, Labour mayor and a Labour council, people working in Ealing have a bright future ahead of them.
Thank you, Councillor Nagpal. Councillor Jammu to Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Could the portfolio holder tell us how the council is supporting homeless families in Ealing?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Jammu. Over the past 6 months alone, the council has received over 2,500 homelessness approaches. That is an exponential rise in the number of families arriving to the steps of Percival House to say that their situation is such that they can no longer afford to live in the home that they have lived in, perhaps for an incredibly long period of time. During that time, the council has been able to prevent over 570 of those homelessness cases, by far the best in London for avoidance. And we've worked with another 402 to try and do likewise. Now, we have seen in the last few years, directly as a consequence of both government inaction and, of course, the disastrous budget of Liz Truss, which sent interest rates through the roof, we have seen a collapse in the private rented sector in Ealing, with some 50% of the market contracting in such time. And of course, what that means is we have seen a massive increase in the use of, unfortunately, bed and breakfast and hotel accommodation. Just a few short years ago, Ealing was able to end that practice through the hard work, skill and dedication of our officers in preventing families having to experience some of the most traumatic experiences that they are probably going to face in this cost of living crisis. But because of the impact of the economy and because of government inaction, we are now back in a situation where we are trying to hold back the flood. But as an administration, we've been incredibly clear about what our priorities are in preventing homelessness and ensuring that we can make anybody living in temporary accommodation live in the shortest possible period in that situation. That's why we're investing over 100 million in our temporary accommodation acquisition policy, whilst doing everything that we can to avoid homelessness in the first place.
Would you like a supplementary, Councillor Jammu?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Anyone else? Councillor Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Does the portfolio holder agree that the Labour government's proposed package of legislation will help protect families across Ealing from housing insecurity?
Thank you, Councillor Wall. With a new Labour government, I believe that we are on the cusp of something quite great and something quite incredible. 1947, we brought in, as a Labour government, the Town and Country Planning Act, just a short year after the implementation of the New Towns Act. And it's that type of boldness that we know that we're going to need to deliver as a Labour government working with Labour councils across the country if we are going to build the 1.5 million homes that we have set out as a Labour Party in the last manifesto. And the reason, of course, that that figure is 1.5 is because of 14 years of failure under the Conservatives and, of course, the Liberal Democrats, who have been for so long, not just nationally, but also in Ealing and in probably every part of the country too, acting as a brake on the homes that we need for people to live in. The original NIMBYs, saying with one that they believe that people deserve a home, yet saying on the other, not next to me. We have now finally a chance that we have had 14 years to do something incredible and to motor on with the building of genuinely affordable, safe homes. And the government have been clear. We know that the supply chain in building homes has collapsed. The council itself has experienced contractors going bust. And why? Because of inflation, because of spikes, incredible spikes in the cost of goods and labour, all caused by the disastrous policies and the disastrous politics of the last few governments. This is an incredible moment, and working hand in hand with a government that cares about the future of our country and a government that cares about the future of every homeless family in this country too, we might finally, with slow, hard, solid progress, be able to make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you. Now that brings us on to opposition business. So I call on Councillor Steed to move the opposition group motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Not our finest moment. This was a comment made by a senior officer concerning the demise of the Careline service. Much as the current administration might bemoan the fact that the opposition has brought the issue back to full council, we do so on the basis of scrutiny and trying to get answers to a number of issues, a number of questions as to how and why Careline was abruptly done away with. I think we understand, we know that there was genuine issues with Careline and the analogue system and what was to replace it. There had been central government warnings that changes were on the way. One of the issues has to be how Ealing responded to the problem, indeed if they initially responded at all, and whether they responded within a suitable timescale. Another central question is the fact that Careline cut across two divisions, housing and social care. There has always been the suggestion that housing made the decision on Careline on the basis that any like-for-like replacement service was going to cost a significant amount of money that housing did not have. Housing made that decision, but it was social care that was left to sort it out, to clear up the mess. At a previous council meeting, the previous portfolio holder made reference to budgetary issues, though was unable to provide a figure as apparently it was too complicated. And we believe that figure was something in the region of £400,000. That the Careline system is complex, that there are 3 different types of users, those needing social care, those in sheltered housing, and those self-funders, only added to the problem. So how was it sorted out? Despite the fact that the issue was talked about in the autumn of last year, this is despite a suspension of new applicants to Careline, and despite discussions with Unison that took place about the possible redundancy of Careline staff, no one seemed to flag the issue up to the users of the system and of the various user groups representing them. The first letter that went out concerning the demise of Careline was on the 9th of February. Even then there was confusion as to who was informed. It would seem that the self-funders received notification in March. The 9th of September letter referred to consultation up to the 11th of March, but helpfully indicated that the service would end on the 1st of April, irrespective of any consultation. The letter listed alternative providers, though quick research discovered that all those listed did not offer the same like-for-like service. One of the key concerns of the users and the families of the users was the responder service, which initially was not on offer from any of the listed alternative providers. So here we are 5 months later, and there are still doubts indeed about the responder service. Recent feedback from officers refers to future models. Future models of what? No detail has been supplied to explain what that actually means and what that means to the users and their families. In the meantime, there is an ongoing assessment of those who are living in the sheltered housing, which I believe is only half completed. Despite requests from the 3 major pressure groups, ERSCAG, CASH and ACORN, there's been no substantive meetings with the new portfolio holders, though I believe they have been requested. It would be great to hear from the council some contrition and an admission that the transition to a new system should have been handled better. That indeed it was not Ealing's finest moment. I am indeed. It was not. I am indeed, Madam Mayor, that it was not Ealing Council's finest moment, and that an apology is due to the users. Thank you.
Councillor Ball, would you like to second?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The story of Careline's closure and replacement starts with a Cinderella service being underinvested in over the years and left to decline. Then we have a decision being made to close it suddenly without proper consideration, union involvement or meaningful user consultation due to a combination of a desperate need to find a budget cut, as both the adult services and housing budgets are squeezed by in-year overspends, and a misunderstood technical driver. Yes, analogue telephone switch off is coming soon, but all phone providers have announced a stay of execution for analogue telecare systems. There was an unrealistic view of users' ability to suddenly pay hugely more for a similar service. Add a dash of departmental siloing so that the learnings from talking to one group of service users don't flow to others. A misunderstanding of the importance of a responder service, leading to it being bolted on at a very late stage in the handover process when some users had already switched to other providers that do not offer one. And finally, a failure to either communicate in a clear and timely manner with service users or to apologise for what has gone wrong, topped off by an attitude that everything is fine now, so why are the pesky opposition councillors and service users still talking about it? I'll briefly give a few examples. One is an elderly man in sheltered housing. One day he has the reassurance that Careline is there, the next day he doesn't. The promised assessment call never materialises. Another is a young woman in a wheelchair who is paying for Careline privately. She needs the responder service because her family members all either live far away or are also disabled, but was just given a list of alternative telecare providers before a responder option had become available and would have heard nothing further if she hadn't got involved through campaigning groups. Yet another simply can't afford the huge increase in cost from Careline bundled into sheltered housing rent to the new Harrow service. People's issues vary, but what their stories have in common is that their individual circumstances are not being properly assessed. It's not good enough that these vulnerable people are left behind. We want a full apology to all the vulnerable people affected, but more importantly than that, we want primarily to ensure that no resident is left behind, that nobody in any of the former Careline user groups, sheltered adult services or private payers is left with no replacement to Careline or the replacement without a responder service if they need that. Being posted a list of possible alternatives with no information about the responder service isn't good enough. Being on a list that should have had an assessment but not being called isn't good enough. Being offered an alternative that they simply can't afford isn't good enough. I beg to second our motion.
Then I have Councillor Blacker.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And there will be a sense of deja vu as I rise again to respond on this. I wrongly assumed that the time we spent at the last full council meeting, patiently addressing these exact issues, and I think I spoke for about half an hour, would have been enough for Liberal Democrats. But if the opposition want me to explain yet again that we've introduced a better, safer and more effective service for vulnerable residents, that is their choice. I will take the opportunity on Councillor Newstub's behalf. Our priority is always to ensure that residents receive the highest standard of care, appropriate to their need. In some cases, that means offering a direct payment and getting out of residents' way as they are best placed to arrange their own care. In others, it means providing a backstop that is ready to step in and help residents in an emergency. Our in-house Careline service was not in a place to step up to provide the standard we expect our residents to receive, particularly in light of the significant investment it would have needed to modernise and digitalise. And I'm pleased to hear the Liberal Democrats this evening accept that. Alongside moving affected residents to receive Careline services seamlessly from another provider, Harrow Council, we introduced an improved responder service, delivered for the first time by CQC registered home care providers, giving residents the peace of mind that in the event of an emergency, they are in safe and qualified hands. Service changes, as I said last time, can be challenging and uncertain, but every effort has been made to ensure that those affected have been assisted in securing the care that they need, either through Harrow Careline or another provider, as appropriate to individual residents' needs. We have reviewed the needs of known service users to ensure that those eligible for adult social care receive the appropriate level of support. Again, as I said last time, all residents previously assessed as needing Careline services from Ealing were successfully transferred over to Harrow Careline. 125 telecare assessments have been completed for residents within sheltered schemes, with almost half resulting in assessment that they needed referral to Harrow Careline. Sheltered residents and private payers alike have also been supported to access other services that may better meet their needs. I can also update you that all calls requiring the responder services since the transition time have been actioned within the industry standard target time. And once again, if there are instances of residents who have not received an appropriate assessment and response to their needs, the Liberal Democrats should take these up as casework and not full council motions. My door was open to them in April, as I said, and Councillor Newstub's door is open to them now. The current offer is safe, effective and an improvement on the quality of emergency assistance available to our most vulnerable residents. I do not understand the Liberal Democrats opposing such improvements in our adult social care offer, and in fact trying to scare the most vulnerable residents in our borough into believing they are at risk. That is not honest politics, it is not decent politics, it is not even good politics, and it is they who should be apologising.
Councillor Kumar.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was accused of scaremongering when I said withdrawal of Careline at short notice could be life-threatening for a vulnerable person unable to get help in time. The difference between the Ealing Careline and Harrow Careline was that Harrow is unable to provide the personal responder service crucial to someone alone, and there are many. Having personally experienced and given support to some elderly people, including family members, I know the importance of this service. Residents for whom the council does not have statutory responsibility have experienced immense challenges in securing an alternative provider themselves. And this is now, I mean, this is very recent. It would have been pragmatic to make this announcement before the service was withdrawn, which would have given users the time to plan the new move. Not an easy task when one is already dependent on others. I think the saving was not huge compared to the anxiety caused. Was just 3 weeks before the transfer enough time for the vulnerable? I think not. The letter sent out to users not falling under the council's responsibility indicated there would be a settling in period for Harrow Careline. And once things had been sorted, users would be receiving another letter as to how things would move forward. I do not think this has materialized yet. Most recently, a family member of a local elderly resident I have been assisting, who has been in and out of hospital after falls, said it was also clear that after the 31st of March this year, no one in Ealing had been appointed to oversee the transfer, and Harrow was still struggling and still are, and one would be lucky to get through to someone for assistance after almost 10 to 12 calls. She said she found only one person in Harrow who had any idea what was going on after 3 months of the withdrawal of this service. All there was an email address, which of course not everyone, especially those who were partially sighted, could access. I understand the new portfolio holders will make contact with the relevant groups and that Ealing Health Watch is also intending to do an enter and view study of the Harrow Care Line in the future. And I do hope this will be addressed on the Health and Wellbeing Scrutiny Panel as well, and very much hope the outcome will be in the best interest of all those residents that need it. I only wish this had been done earlier. Thank you.
Councillor Weston.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As my colleague Councillor Black has said, ensuring that residents receive the highest standard of care is a top priority, and it's with that commitment in mind that the administration made the decision to transfer the Ealing Care Line service to Harrow. As someone who in my day job works to ensure that nurses, midwives and nursing associates provide the safest and most effective care to patients and the public, I understand the importance of maintaining high standards. Those who interact with council services deserve nothing less than the best possible care. I want to acknowledge the concerns raised about the impact of this transition. Change is never easy, and I appreciate that it was particularly difficult for our elderly and vulnerable residents. Council officers have worked tirelessly to protect and support them throughout the transition by providing personalised advice and support. Over the past 14 years, we've faced drastic cuts to our council budgets due to a sustained period of Tory austerity. These financial pressures have made sustaining services at the highest standards our residents deserve increasingly challenging. The Careline service, despite its merits, was being heavily subsidised by the council. Continuing this subsidy was not financially viable without compromising other critical services. The service required significant and costly upgrades to maintain safety and quality standards. As chair of the Council's Health and Adult Social Services Scrutiny Panel, I attended the public meeting arranged by ERSCAG, the Ealing Reclaim Social Care Action Group, to listen to the concerns and organised a briefing for my committee members. Their feedback and insights were invaluable as we navigated this transition together. For those in receipt of adult social care, we facilitated an automatic transfer to the Harrow Careline service, ensuring there was no disruption in the service. Over 1,600 Ealing residents have successfully transitioned to Harrow service with an average of 43 calls per day. As someone with a close family member in a care home, I understand personally the importance of ensuring vulnerable individuals receive the highest level of care. That's why Ealing Council is committed to making sure that our residents were supported during this transition and received the care they need. Our Health Scrutiny Panel will continue to monitor the impact of the change of service. We've already committed to bringing a report to our September meeting. I look forward to listening to the voices of Careline users to understand their experiences and to ensure that the service continues to provide appropriate support and care for Ealing residents. Thank you.
Councillor Rice.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, only last Friday, I was sat at the airport in Tallinn and an Estonian passenger started a conversation. I told him how I was worried about the IT crash and how I had to be back in time for a meeting in the morning with the residents because I'm a local councillor. The passenger asked me about the new Labour government and how it might also affect my work. I told him all about the funding cuts we had suffered from the Tory government over the last 14 years and how there was now hope that things might change and eventually we might be able to provide the services we want to once again. The new government comes after a manifesto which states Labour is committed to ensuring everyone lives an independent, prosperous life. Social care is vital to achieving this, but hundreds of thousands of people suffer without the care they need for a dignified life. It goes on to pledge that services will be locally delivered with a principle of home first that supports people to live independently for as long as possible. Many in need of care fear losing independence. They fear being away from their home and they dread that they will lose their freedom if they live in a care home. We can listen to Mark in Bristol, for example, who has cerebral palsy and who spoke last year about living with support from personal assistants and being a governor of the local school and holding a season ticket for Bristol City Football Club. All of that was under threat, as such care was not seen as best value by the local authority, and he was forced to campaign. He was threatened with life in a care home instead, where his independence would come to an end. But what choice might a local authority have when it becomes impossible to afford the services which facilitate independent living? Budget slashed to the point where few of us can provide services such as Careline to the standards offered by other suppliers and to the standards which residents deserve. We in Ealing Labour believe our residents deserve to have ownership over their care, and we are helping residents in sheltered accommodation and those who are paying privately find alternative providers where needed. We agree with our party's manifesto as to our priorities here, and there are so many priorities to attend to that it has been a burden to residents as we seek out how we can continue to operate without the funding we desperately need. We know that recent changes have resulted in low loss of service to those in receipt of adult social care when they have been transferred to the Harrow Careline service, despite an average of 43 calls per day. Other providers are in a better position to serve our residents than we are, and maintaining standards must remain paramount. At Labour Party conference last year, our new Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, looked forward to a national care service delivered in partnership with local councils, and he added that the local government would be equipped to deliver social care and that councils would be given the tools to deliver. I completely would empathise with those who need care and crave their independence. In 1999, I had a stroke and I was paralysed down my left side, and I was told I would never recover. The thought of losing independence for the rest of my life was devastating, although of course I did recover to lead a normal life and make my own choices and decisions. Alongside the Careline service, there is much else which matters to residents when addressing social care.
If you can.
Yes, yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. We can only hope, Madam Mayor, that for the most normal and independent life possible for all our residents in Ealing. Thank you.
Councillor Bacclini.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It seems that the opposition have a short memory, and I've taken it upon myself tonight to refresh it. It is almost laughable that they are complaining on our handling of the Careline service, given that this entire situation is a direct result of their failed policies and relentless cuts to local authorities. The hypocrisy is evident. They are attacking us for the very mess they created. Perhaps the Conservative and Lib Dem councillors here remember the impact of the Blue and Orange coalition government on healthcare and what it meant for people's health and ease of accessing accident and emergency care after they shut almost half of these crucial services across Ealing and West London, creating a healthcare crisis that still affects us today. After 14 years of Tory austerity, you only need to visit an A&E to witness how they have failed children, adults, and the elderly. The long delays in seeing a doctor are a testament to their mismanagement. Even former Tory Health Minister Dan Poulter criticised their healthcare management and declared that the only cure is a Labour government, and has since crossed the floor. Madam Mayor, in stark contrast, Ealing Council has taken proactive steps to protect and support our elderly and vulnerable residents. Faced with the challenges surrounding the Careline service, we made the tough decision to transfer it, not to abandon our residents, but to ensure they receive the highest standards of care. The decision to transfer Careline was rooted in our commitment to uphold these standards. With council budgets slashed over the past 14 years, we faced immense financial pressure, so it was also necessary to address financial sustainability and provide our residents with greater choice and control over their care. In conclusion, Councillor Gallant, your party's track record is a disaster. Look behind you and see the wreckage of your failed policies. But let me be clear, this Labour Council will not allow your past failures to dictate our future. We are committed to Ealing residents, young adults and the elderly. With Labour in government, we stand ready to deliver a brighter and better future, ensuring that every individual in Ealing Borough has the opportunity to thrive in a society defined by fairness and unwavering support for all. Thank you.
Councillor Donnelly.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My colleagues have spoken very eloquently and elegantly about the detail as to why this motion is wrong in fact as well as principle. I'm going to speak less elegantly, I think. I can't recall a motion on something that's put forward as being enormously important by a group in which it does no more than move and second it. It's important enough to speak. I mean, that is remarkable to me, but I want to home in on a comment that Councillor Blacker made, that this motion is not honest politics. It's an interesting word, honest, because some may not know, but the Liberal Democrats have invented a role called the shadow spokesperson for finance and council honesty. Well, the unfortunate owner of that title can't be here this evening, but I don't hold him personally responsible. This is an act of collective self-importance in the creation of that perhaps uniquely pompous title. But with sanctimony comes responsibility. And this responsibility involves not scaremongering. And you may give warm words in your speeches about seeking contrition or looking for a full apology. But look at the words of the motion. The words of the motion state that we are putting vulnerable residents at risk across the borough. That's not true. I'd put it more strongly, but I don't believe in using words in this chamber unless it's absolutely necessary. But I think you know what I mean. We have treated this issue with the seriousness it deserves. We have treated the residents impacted with the seriousness that they deserve, and we will continue to do so. In the meantime, let's take this motion where it deserves and move on.
Councillor Steed, would you like to sum up?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you for the contributions from everybody else who's spoken for and against the motion. One of the things that concerns me, and one of the things why I mentioned scrutiny in my opening remarks, was that what I still find very hard to understand is the process that's been gone through. And in particular, the timeline that the council chose to make. If they knew about these issues in the autumn of last year, and they probably knew before then, why did they choose this really restrictive timeline to consult with the users and the users' families? Previously, I asked the portfolio holder, the previous portfolio holder who spoke this evening, if there were commercial considerations affecting the timeline that the council chose. I didn't get an answer then, and I don't suppose I'll get an answer tonight either. Fundamentally, we don't know why the council announced and consulted so late in the day and then had such a short period for those people who we all acknowledge may be elderly, may be vulnerable to varying degrees, to respond. There seems little doubt that with more time and better communication, much of the confusion and the stress endured by the 3,000 users of the Careline system could have been avoided. And it's that particular point, that questioning of the timeline and the process, that ideally I would like to focus on. All the other discussions and points that are much broader points about local government funding, etc. Actually, we would probably agree with most members in this chamber on their viewpoints. And on the importance of health, we would agree with most members in this chamber. I hasten to add, as you'll probably be all aware, that our national leader made a big thing of social care during the general election that we've all just gone through. What I question is the process, the specific process that the council and the officers went through. And to that point, I've had no decent responses. Thank you.
No abstentions. I think that's been lost. Thank you. Now the majority group's motion for debate. I call on Councillor Mason to move it.
Madam Mayor, the Labour group have been working for the last 14 years for us to be able to say this in the chamber tonight. But isn't it great to have a Labour government? Madam Mayor, our new Prime Minister Keir Starmer has set out very clearly that his will be a government of service, that it has generated a clear mandate to deliver the change that our country desperately needs, with an agenda to govern with the seriousness that this time requires and with solutions, where it is going to take the difficult decisions needed to fix the fundamentals and to deliver on the 6 steps for change. Namely, that we deliver higher growth, that we secure cheaper bills, that we make our streets safer, that we get our NHS back on its feet, that we secure our borders, and that we make sure that we deliver opportunities for each and every one of our children. The Tories put national interest to one side and let our country's problems fester, whilst they focused on saving their own skins. And every day, the government is discovering more and more of the mess that the Tories have left for Labour to clear up. Our prisons are in crisis, sewage has flooded our rivers and our seas, and our Chancellor has warned that our public finances are now the worst that they have ever been since perhaps the Second World War. So we know that the change we need to deliver is not going to happen overnight. But the work of change has begun. Keir Starmer has set out that it will be a long, hard, patient period of work of a serious country governing to get our country back on track. So let me also extend our congratulations to Councillor Deirdre Costigan, our new Member of Parliament for Ealing Southall, and also to Councillor Callum Anderson for his election to Buckingham and Bletchley, and of course, to Councillor Greg Stafford. Now, there will of course be ensuing by-elections, and perhaps we may hold true to the informal commitment that we gave to the Conservatives, that should another Stafford lose their seat, which unfortunately for them they did, perhaps they could rejoin us here in the chamber if they should so choose to stand in the Hanger Hill by-election. Today, Councillor Mahfouz and I were able to join the Mayor of London and Gordon Brown in Greenford at the launch of a multi-bank, the first in London, working with the Felix Project and with Amazon to make sure that the most vulnerable people in our society have the support that they need. The last time Gordon Brown was in Number 10 was in 2009. And let me tell you how fabulous it was to be together with Labour leaders meeting with Labour ministers for the very first time in 14 years in Downing Street just last week. Let me also pay tribute to Virendra Sharma, who's with us here this evening. Virendra, having stood down as a Member of Parliament, has given 50 years of service to this borough as a councillor and as a Member of Parliament. And I know and I hope that his work in public service is not done yet. He will continue to be an ally for our borough. Savour the time ahead. This is the first time since 2006, since even before Gordon Brown was Prime Minister, that we have an alignment of Labour at Number 10, at City Hall and at Purcell House. We can do great things, but they will require energy, determination, and yes, a bit of patience too. Madam Mayor, I move the motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It is a pleasure to follow Councillor Mason and to second this motion tonight and take a moment to mark what it means. When Keir Starmer became leader in 2020 and embraced that task to come back from such difficult defeat, many said it couldn't be done in one term. He said at the time, "We have a mountain to climb," and with determination set out about doing so. Now, under his Labour government, a programme of much needed national renewal begins, including legislation on renters' rights, devolution, planning and children's well-being. Change begins right here. Such has our local success been here in Ealing. It means that a busy season of by-elections does await us. Following the footsteps of alumni like Steve Pound and Hilary Benn, we have members going forth from this place. Stirring pride in Ealing and across the Irish Sea, Councillor Deirdre Costigan, as our new member for Ealing Southall, takes over the mantle from Virendra Sharma after his many years of great service, and we're very honoured to have him here with us this evening. Representing Buckingham and Bletchley, Callum Anderson has joined the government front bench as a PPS. And from the same notable ranks of our ECA CLP executive, Peter Swallow, also of this parish, joins as the member for Bracknell. What is our loss locally is Westminster's gain, as our honourable friends join the government benches alongside Rupa Huck, who returns as our MP for Ealing Central and Acton with her biggest ever majority. And MP for Ealing North, James Murray, takes up the role as Exchequer Secretary to the Treasury. We are proud of them all and the work that they will do. Madam Mayor, from Uxbridge to Swindon, more than one new Member of Parliament knows the value of having Ealing Labour in your corner. And well done to all the colleagues here who helped tirelessly to make that so. Our now famous campaigning reputation precedes us, something which is a real credit to the leadership of Councillor Peter Mason, who made sure we stuck to our twinning promises. And I just want to take a moment to mention as well Councillor Louise Brett, who has joined as a Deputy Leader, and I want to wish her well in her place as well. Madam Mayor, I'd like to congratulate across the political floor Councillor Gregory Stafford as the new member for Farnham and Borden. It is perhaps a good opportunity to say that he is the member of this council I happen to know the longest. We actually go back all the way to the 80s. As he once said to me in a Count Centre, I wish him luck, but not too much. Madam Mayor, along with my councillor colleagues, Monica Hamidi and Yoel Gordon, I had the honour of being out on the pitch myself at this general election. I was Labour's candidate for Spelthorne, and it was an experience I loved every minute of. I couldn't have asked for better team spirit, and the conversations I had with the good people of Spelthorne will always stay with me. All of us have had hundreds, if not thousands, of conversations with voters at this election, and I would like to thank those who got us here, some of them taking leaps of faith to do so. Together we have achieved change. Now locally, regionally and nationally, let's show the difference Labour can make for the people of Ealing and the people of Britain. I proudly second this motion tonight.
Councillor Hirsch. Oh, sorry.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Let me first of all say welcome to those three of our councillors who were elected as MPs a couple of weeks ago. And it was, of course, amazing to see the rise of the Liberal Democrats, as many people didn't quite believe from the polls that they were seeing weeks before, reaching their highest ever total since their formation. 72 MPs, and they will work really hard in their constituencies to solve the local issues that the Tories created over the past decade that they've been in charge. When Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak started the campaign with their debates, it did seem to become an endless list of accusations, and that positivity that there was an election dwindled away a little bit as it went through. And I think Ed Davey, with his mix of grabbing people's attention next to the actual policies that were very positive, and he did that really effective, showing that why carers, and I think Councillor Steve mentioned it in a previous debate, why carers up and down the country really need more support and help from the government, and they didn't get that over the past 10 years. Residents saw what Ed Davey, what makes him tick, and people wanted to see a more personal side to their politicians, and I think they got that with him. I think we hope that the new government will form a cross-party body to solve some of these issues, because the manifesto wasn't as clear as I would have liked on this particular issue, because I think there are many carers in Ealing, London and the UK that need to receive better treatment and better care. There were other issues locally which were raised, and we hope that the government can make improvements on those. Seeing their local GP sooner, getting access to NHS dentists, more home insulation, more trade with the EU, not by going into the EU again in the way that it did, but there are many ways the government can actually forge a more stronger link with Europe to increase our ailing economy and turn that around. More local policing to reduce crime, and we need more support from those who've got mental health concerns and issues. Relating to the amendment, I talk about the turnout, and I think partway through the campaign, that initial optimism that there'd be 70, 80, 85% turnouts dwindled as it went on. And it was really sad that we saw quite a low turnout compared to what we'd hoped. And I think that's a message for all of us as councillors and MPs around the country, that we need to work harder locally and nationally to engage with our residents in a better way than we have before. And seeing the 6 Lib Dem MPs around London, who are not too far based from Ealing, it just shows that people were really fed up of the Tories and wanted local champions. And those MPs and the other 72 Lib Dem MPs around the country will really give them a good service. So in summary, I wish our 3 new MPs well, and I hope they will improve Ealing, as there are many things that are needed to be fixed here. But it does feel good to get the back of many of those bad Tory MPs up and down the country. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
And I believe Councillor Hirsch would like to speak later, or would you like to speak now?
I second the motion and will speak later.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Baines.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, thank you. Today we stand at a pivotal moment in our nation's history. With an overwhelming mandate from the people, the Labour Party has achieved a resounding triumph. This victory is not only political, it is a testament to our collective will of millions who have voted for change. Today, we extend our heartfelt congratulations to all elected members of Parliament whose dedication and hard work have brought us to this significant day. This victory would not have been possible without the collective effort of all who campaigned tirelessly despite the challenges of the Great British weather. This landslide wins a new era of hope and progress, an era where the dreams of the many will finally take precedence of the interests of the few. The message is unmistakable. The people have spoken and they demand change. I would like to congratulate our Ealing MPs, Roo Park, James Murray, and extend special recognition to Deirdre Costigan, our newly elected MP for Ealing and Southall, and also have a nod and say thank you to Vrinda Sharma for all of your impeccable work over the years. Congratulations also to councillors Callum Anderson and Greg Stafford, who have successfully stood for election as members of Parliament. Let's reflect on what this victory signifies. For far too long, families in Ealing have been devastated by low growth. The victory is our call for growth, creating good jobs, fighting inequality, and tackling the climate crisis. It shows our vision of a society where opportunity is a right, not a privilege, shared by the majority. Our fight for social injustice, equality, and dignity for all, not just a dream, but a mandate from the people. This victory is a call to work with the Labour government and the Mayor of London. We will translate our promises into policies, our vision into reality, and our hope into tangible improvements in the lives of our fellow residents. Together, we will build a Britain that is fairer, stronger, and more united. Together, we will make a history, and together we'll make this difference. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sidhu.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Tonight, we stand in a pivotal moment in political history. A Labour government, a Labour London Mayor, and a Labour Council. Today, I stand here proud to be part of such great change. 14 years of austerity and suffering at the hands of a Tory government. The public spoke and they chose Labour. They chose to protect public services such as the NHS. They chose a government that reversed the unlawful Rwanda scheme, and they chose a government who will stand with them. In such a short time, the Labour government has removed the ban on onshore wind farms, ensuring a cleaner and greener future for the children of today. A promise to create new homes and help put an end to the housing crisis we find ourselves at the hands of a Conservative government. A government who has called for an immediate ceasefire in occupied Palestine as in support of saving the lives of innocents. A government who are finally willing to investigate the Thatcher government's involvement in Operation Blue Star 1984 in India, which led to the genocide of the Sikh population. Finally, a government who is willing to put their citizens above trade deals, extradite those citizens who have been wrongfully imprisoned and tortured, such as Jagtar Singh Johal, known as Juggy to friends and family. Here in Ealing, we continue to persevere and thrive despite detrimental cuts made to our budget by a Tory government. We have implemented the real living wage for adult and social care workers. 98% of our schools were rated good in our Ofsted inspections. Invested millions in tackling violence against women and antisocial behaviour. We will continue to achieve and tackle these at greater lengths now that a Labour government is back in power. We shall continue in helping Ealing residents tackling any issues that may arise in the future to create a safer and more sustainable Ealing. To end my speech, I want to congratulate the councillors who have been duly elected as MPs in this current election and wish them the best of luck in their journey. Thank you.
Councillor Conti.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to start by congratulating Councillors Costigan and Anderson on being elected to Parliament. We may have our political differences, and as Conservative councillors, we have on many occasions been on the receiving end of Councillor Costigan's verbal lashings in response to our questions. But we've heard both them speak with great passion in this chamber about the issues they care about and the communities that they serve. I'm sure they will continue to show that passion and be great advocates for the constituencies that they now represent. I want to, of course, congratulate Councillor Stafford. I've known him for over 10 years and been his ward colleague since 2021. Having seen his thoughtful determination, hard work and commitment, it leaves me in no doubt that the residents of Farnham and Borden have a great champion for them on the green benches. I want to also extend our congratulations more widely to the Labour group for their victory in the general election and the Lib Dems for their progress. As Conservatives, we must reflect on the verdict given to us by our fellow citizens. I know over recent weeks and months, we've heard on the doorstep the frustration and anger that many feel towards our party, not only on the way that some within it have behaved, but also the introspection, but most importantly of all, the breakdown in trust because of a failure to deliver on some key commitments. Now, yes, there's been a once-in-a-generation pandemic that shut down the global economy, followed by a war on this continent in the last Parliament. But as a party, we need to be sorry for where we've fallen short and pledge to be better in our service. Now, there are areas over the last 14 years that we are proud of delivering in government. In education, since 2010, we've risen up independent international league tables in English and maths. 90% of English schools are rated good or outstanding, compared to just 68% 14 years ago. Recent UCAS figures show that a record number of young people from disadvantaged backgrounds are now going to university. In fact, they're 71% more likely to be going to university than they were in 2010. If there's anything that improves a young person's life chances, it's our educational opportunity. In 2010, only 7% of our electricity was generated by renewables and 75% by fossil fuels. Over the last 14 years, we've decarbonised faster than any other G7 country, and last year, only 30% of our power came from fossil fuels. 4 million more jobs were created, unemployment levels almost half what they were in 2010, and an economy that's the fastest growing in the G7 this year. And in an area that's close to my heart, there was a Conservative Prime Minister leading a coalition government that a decade ago oversaw the legalisation of same-sex marriage that meant whoever you love, that love is equal. We're one of the first nations in the world to do that, and that will be an enduring legacy.
Thank you. Councillor Hashani.
Thank you, Mrs. Mayor. It is with pleasure that I speak in support of this original motion. And last week, in the first King's speech under the new Labour government, Keir Starmer began the process of returning trust, professionalism and public service back into national politics. And my God, we'd missed it after 14 years of chaos and disaster. The last few weeks actually have brought a very welcome sense of a collective sense of relief. I don't know about you, but I'm walking down the streets feeling a bit lighter because for over a decade, we saw a scapegoating of the most vulnerable people in our society, from people with disabilities to refugees. I think that's all we heard for so many years, and it increased anxiety in the nation. And so it was most welcome that one of the first acts of the new Labour government was to scrap the cruel Rwanda scheme, which caused so much hurt for so many people. And I guess that was sort of a sign about where we're going, which will be that we won't be fighting culture wars anymore. We're going to be fighting the real issues that are affecting people on a day-to-day basis. And I think we saw a lot of that in the King's speech, which brought in wide-ranging plans to bring back economic stability with new employment rights. There were provisions for more powers for local mayors and local councils, with the creation of GB Energy and so on. And recently, actually during the general election, I was at an event where the former party leader, Neil Kinnock, spoke, and he said that there was a time when there were no people on stretchers in hospital corridors, and when there were enough teachers in classrooms, and when you could call your GP to get an appointment on the same day. And these things were taken for granted in the 2000s. And I know some people in my generation might not remember what that felt like, but I very much hope that for those growing up now and the generations to come, they can again take for granted that they live in a humane country filled with possibility and hope. Because that, as we know, takes a lot of hard work, it takes a lot of effort, a lot of perseverance to achieve that. And with that, I just want to wish the new government every success, and we're right behind them in the work that they're going to be doing in the next few years. Thank you.
It is now. Sorry, Madam Mayor. I was saying that I wholeheartedly welcome the motion, welcoming the end of the 14 years of Tory government, which has stressed our country's public services and people's sense of self-esteem and well-being. And Madam Mayor, during 6 weeks of intense campaigning, we came face to face with people's frustration and anger and bitterness about 14 years of Tory government. There were stories of all sorts, from potholes to cost of living, health services, doctor's appointments, knife crime, and a lot of unhappiness with police, which people feel they never come, like waiting for Godot. They never turn up when they are needed. But there's one particular conversation on the doorstep I want to share with you, Madam Mayor. And that was with a very elderly, frail man in West Drayton, who told me that in the middle of the night, he had to phone police because he was in danger. And when he dialed 999, he was put through to police, but on the other end, a machine on 999 telling him, "We cannot take your call at this moment, go to our website." A machine telling a frail 80+ elderly man in danger, and he said he was trembling with fear already and he froze there. He felt so helpless and insecure. And as I walked away from that address, Madam Mayor, I felt his pain. I also reflected that how 14 years of trashing of public services has reduced our country to what the French sociologist Durkheim said, state of ennui. Ennui, a French word, roughly translated, means a sense of utter hopelessness, desolation, normlessness, where people don't know who to turn for help. And this was really the picture of broken Britain I could see when I spoke to this elderly man. And so really, this is where we are, Madam Mayor, after 14 years of Tory government. And this is also an indication of the scale of challenge that awaits Labour government, and I wish them well. Finally, Madam Mayor, all the best to the new MPs, Ealing Southall MP, Deirdre Costigan, and the 2 MPs who have been re-elected, and the 3 of our colleagues, Councillor Hamidi, Claire Tighe, and Gordon, who tried but they didn't succeed, but I admire their courage. And Councillor Tighe came within very near to winning. And finally, Madam Mayor, thanks to Vrinda Sharma, I echo Councillor Mason's sentiments, a huge presence in Ealing community, after 50 years of public service. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Hirsch, you're seconding the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have truly seen a momentous election on the 4th of July, which has resulted in a sea change in the ruling party, but also the oppositions. I would like wholeheartedly to congratulate the Labour Party with that enormous kind of majority win, and of course also our old and new MPs, Whooper Hack, James Murray and Deirdre Costigan, for gaining their seats and now representing us in Parliament. I have joined the Liberal Party at a rather kind of historic low, and so I'm very proud they have achieved a historic high and with more seats than in the last 100 years. People up and down the country have been really longing for change after a Conservative Party which has been more than kind of displeasing them, and they were disappointed with it. They have voted for change and a fairer deal. I watched the election night like many of you probably have done, and for me the personification of the failure of the Conservative Party when Liz Truss accepted her election result in the most graceless and dishonourable manner possible, and then later on blamed somebody else for her failure. I shall not mention her name again. I spoke to many people on the doorstep like many of you and was frustrated to hear of how many people are completely disengaged with politics, you know, think all politicians lie, they're all the same, they're all in it for themselves. And of course, it's not a complete surprise given the amount of cheats and lies they've heard over the last few years, you know, from Partygate to the corruption about PPE to the kind of clear incompetence with the mini budget, just to name a few. So with this change we are now talking about needs to be also a change in regaining this trust in people, in us as politicians. I mean, politicians never had a fantastic image, but I think we have reached a low which was clearly expressed in the very low turnout we have seen in this general election. So in a way, I want put this challenge to all of us to, you know, work with deeds and not just words to regain that trust of people in what we do as politicians, to speak the truth, to promise what we can deliver, and also to listen to residents and really care about what they most care about, whether that's seeing their GP, finding a dentist they can afford, you know, recognizing our carers, which deliver an enormous benefit to our kind of people, and gaining economic growth again, because we are still in the cost of living crisis. And while inflation comes down, you know, the cost of energy is still going up. So to sum up, you know, it's kind of, we have all celebrated, or some of us have celebrated election results, but we surely have our work cut out. So metaphorically speaking, and I end with that, throwing ourselves off water slides or paddle boards or even bungee jumping, we as the Liberal Democrats surely will play our role in that. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Hamidi.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm delighted to speak today following an amazing Labour victory, a historic victory for this country, a victory for Ealing. Through 14 hard years of Conservative rule, I'm proud of everything our council here has done to protect the people of Ealing when they needed it. Proud of the Labour MPs we have had and we have now. I would like to pay a special tribute to Virendra Sharma. He served Ealing Southall as a Member of Parliament, Mayor and Councillor before. A record of public service going back 50 years. He has been a mentor to me, a kind and inspiring figure, and without him, I would never have got involved in politics. I want to thank him for his service and for his friendship and unstinting loyalty to the Labour Party. As a humble Broadway councillor, I can say we were lucky to have his morals and values representing us in Parliament. And I welcome too our new MP, Deirdre Costigan, our colleague here. Her commitment to fairness, to equality and the environment will be well supported in our new government. I look forward to working with her in her new role, and I'm ever so grateful for her support, for her work as Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Climate Action. Deirdre, along with James and Rupert, Callum and Greg, have quite the daunting challenge. to undo wasted years, kickstart our decade of national renewal, turn around wage stagnation and invest in the future. To undo the Tories' disastrous breaking of Britain and get us off our knees. I congratulate Ealing Council, Peter and Louise, for this motion. Our cooperation with the Labour government will signal new growth. With missions committed to making Ealing residents healthier, safer and richer, Labour has a plan. Across the NHS, police, Great British Energy and the economy, in only 2 weeks of government, we have seen real change. The passion visible under Keir, Angela and Rachel is a stark contrast to the mess the Tories left. We owe them cooperation for the sake of Ealing and everyone living here. The best can still be to come. Across 4 terms, Labour have transformed Ealing. Now let's help Labour transform Britain. Thank you.
Councillor Taylor.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. I do feel, looking at you, somewhat naked without a chain right now, but also envy with your entourage that's in front of me as well. But I can also thank you for visiting that temple in Greenford, otherwise known as Sri Jawaharlal Mandir, for their 5th anniversary last month. And I think they were generous in a donation to your charities as well. Now, I have to say, I was a bit annoyed with Rishi Sunak because it was the day after I stepped down as mayor and caused the general election, because I was looking forward to a holiday, but that didn't materialise because we had our orders from Councillor Shaw to get up and down the country, you know, to Swindon and places, you know, knocking on those doors. And I think well done to everybody who's been knocking on those doors to ensure Labour victory. Elections, they are fun, and I did miss them while I was in the mayoralty, for the hard work and enthusiasm, especially when you get a yes. Although in our case, the Labour canvas was a rating out of 10, wasn't it, or something? How do you feel? Now, before I thank the MPs, let me just thank Councillor Bassam Mahfouz, of course, got elected in May as the new GLA member. Of course, we didn't acknowledge that before, but well done. And clearly, welcome to our 3 back 2 MPs who returned, with Rupert and James Murray, and of course Deirdre Costigan, who's left this place, and a tribute, of course, to Virendra Sharma from the Southall. We've seen the record number of Sikh MPs elected in this Parliament. I think increased number of Muslim MPs elected. So I know, as someone's a fellow Hindu, we will miss his voice from a Hindu perspective as well in that Parliament. But he'd represent not just the Hindu community, but the whole community of Southall during his years in there. Also, congratulations to Anderson and Stafford. And I know when I visit my mother now, I'll at least be visiting a Labour seat now in Buckingham Bletchley, where Callum is the MP there. I think it was in 18th of May 2010 when I first came here in the chamber across the road and making my debut, following the election of a new Labour council, which of course coincided with the election of a new Labour government. We worked hard. We warned then about the problems we've had, the benefit caps, the slowdown, reduction of affordable housing, the changes in homeless legislation, and changes in definition of what was considered. It's been pointed out the consequences of where we are today, the highest number of households in temporary accommodation, more people living on the streets than ever before, and the rise of so many food banks, Madam Mayor. But the fact is, many of our communities have lived in fear for the last 14 years, a fear of getting old, a fear of getting sick, a fear of missing rent payments, a fear of losing their jobs. And for migrant and minority communities, a fear that we'll get blamed for the nation's ills. However, what this election does bring is hope, free from the chains of fear for thousands across Ealing, hope for the millions across the country for a better Britain. And it took a Labour government in '97 to transform the nation. And as this government gets to grip with power, it will deliver the change that we want to see. Thank you.
Councillor Jessel.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As a proud Labour councillor and a proud Labour Party member, I am ecstatic and cannot describe how proud and truly delighted I am about the advent of a new Labour government, with Sir Keir Starmer now residing at number 10 Downing Street as our Prime Minister governing Britain. We are all part of that change. And what a win for Labour. For far too long, I have watched as Conservative Party have neglected and decimated so much of our country. Ordinary people have endured chaos and decline under the 14 years of harsh Conservative rule. This has unmoored us from so much of what previously made Britain great. Hear me now, as I convey the era of Conservative decline is over. Labour will rebuild Britain. Labour will govern for the entire country. They will rebuild our foundations and start anew. That's why the Labour government has already acted upon vital issues of importance. The failed and inhumane Rwanda scheme is now abolished. The relationship between government and local councils has been reset. And as we hear from the King's speech, Labour will deliver more jobs, better transport, and the planning reforms we need to get Britain building again. Labour does not just promise change, we deliver it. Since I became a councillor in 2002, a Labour-run council has delivered hundreds of affordable homes for local people, helped over 6,000 residents into good jobs, and achieved a 98% rating of good status for our schools. We have also invested millions in tackling antisocial behaviour, violence against women and girls, burglary, and violent crime. Despite operating in a Conservative austerity, Ealing is at the forefront of what local government can achieve. Just imagine what we will achieve when we work alongside a Labour government. Madam Mayor, I wish to end my speech by paying tribute to my colleagues who stood for Parliament in the general election. Firstly, to Deirdre Costigan, Callum Anderson and Gregory Stafford. And also for the re-election of James Murray and Rupa Huck. And also to Bassam Mahfouz as GLA member. And also to Sadiq Khan as Mayor of London. And a big thank you to Verinder Sharma for his long-term service as MP for Southall. Thank you. Madam Mayor, the British public voted for change.
Time is actually up now, Councillor Jessel.
And I'm confident that a Labour government will deliver it. That's why I support this motion.
I've been a bit tolerant tonight because we've been honouring the long service of our colleague over there, but I think in future I'm going to put some of you on a naughty step. There's about 4 or 5 of you now, and we're not going to let this happen every meeting. But now, we've now got to Councillor Malcolm. Would you like to do your summing up of your amendment?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think most of us welcome the results of the general election, but probably even some of the Conservatives actually secretly. Much work is needed to improve the economy, reduce the crime rate and give access to health services. And I talked before about mental health services, which I think did need more discussion in the election campaign itself. But there were 2 speakers that talked about the themes we've been suffering for 5 or so years, which I think are very relevant. The first was Councillor Dear, the cost of living crisis that we're suffering and have been for a while, the broken Britain that people just feel part of and they can't break out of. And Councillor Taylor went on to talk about the situation that he knows about as a councillor, but also professionally, about the many people who are homeless in this borough, but also around London. And then the food banks, where we're in a situation where teachers and nurses are using food banks, groups that 10 years ago, 5 years ago didn't. And this is a society where we're in an absolutely terrible situation compared to many years ago. So although our economy has been left in a state after Truss, Johnson and Sunak has left it in that state, we wish the new government well to turn things around. So we can only improve ourselves if we grow our economy and start to invest in services. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
And I have to put myself on the naughty step. As I say, I'm always in a hurry, and I missed out Councillor Jasbir and I want to give her an opportunity to say
Madam Mayor,
something.
it's absolutely fine. We're on the sum ups now, and I'm quite
Okay,
happy to.
it's very kind of you. I think I'll owe you an extra samosa. Councillor Mason, if you would like to sum up.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. A Labour government, just incredible, just incredible. Let me turn to a few of my colleagues' speeches, and let me first address Councillor Conti, who I thought gave a very gracious speech in terms of the period of introspection and reflection that the Conservatives will now have to take. Let me offer him some friendly words of advice from a political party that perhaps went into a period of its own challenges that perhaps wasn't in the place of the public. As my colleagues have rightly pointed out, as Councillor Tai clearly pointed out, we ourselves got our energies back in the service of working people. And the Conservatives, I think, are on the precipice of doing something very dangerous, which is moving to the extreme, and to allow too much of the populism that we have seen on the continent and in the States infect too much of our politics. So my plea actually to him and his colleagues, don't let that happen. It's not good for Ealing, it's not good for London, it's certainly not good for our country. And it perhaps does explain why the Liberal Democrats have put down their motion. Now, far be it from me to point out to the Liberal Democrats that your vote share in this general election increased by 0.6%, which, because of the collapse and the lack of support that the country clearly showed for the Conservative Party, puts you in a situation a bit like Ealing, in which you've sort of increased your numbers by default. You might be the official opposition in name, but you don't have you are the third party in Ealing. And if you try and out-Tory the Tories in your pursuit of shire seats and outflanking them on the right, you perhaps face a serious dilemma as you become even more of a divided party between your rural areas and your inner urban locations. Time will tell where you end up, but I look forward to seeing the outcome of the Hanger Hill by-election. Turning to my colleagues, what incredible, fantastic speeches that highlight just how incredible it has been to be able to win for the first time in 14 years. We have serious allies in Parliament now working with a Labour Mayor and a Labour Council to get things done. For all of the effort that we put into twinning, winning is winning, just as the Liberal Democrats and the Tories were doing the same, our joy must now turn into seriousness. Our wonder must turn into studiousness, and our energies must turn to stability. The stability that our country needs so that we can change it for the better. Madam Mayor, I move the motion.
Can we now vote on the amendment, please? Those in favour of the amendment, please show. Those against, please show. And anyone wishing to abstain? I'm afraid that amendment is lost. If we can vote in favour of the original motion, those in favour of the motion, please show. Those against? Any abstentions? That's lost and the motion is passed. Thank you. That brings us back to the ordinary business of the agenda. That brings us on to item, so I'm just turning the pages, I'm afraid I'm a bit old-fashioned. Brings us on to item 12, I think it is. Was it 11? 12. Item 12. So who's moving that? Anybody?
Here moved, Madam Mayor.
Sorry?
Yeah.
Oh yes, sorry,
moved,
Councillor Shaw, go
Mayor.
ahead.
Thank you. Moved.
Who's seconding that? Yes, thank
So
you.
seconded.
Are we all in favour of that? Agreed? Thank you. And then we move on to item 14, appointment of an independent person for standards. Somebody moving that?
Yeah, moved again, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Somebody seconding that? Thank you. Are we all happy with that? Agreed? Thank you. And that brings us to item Okay, didn't actually say what that was about, the one that we voted on before, which was changes to the constitution, but it was all agreed. So I'm sure if anyone was unhappy, they'd have been jumping up and down. So thank you for that. I hope all our legal people are happy, because we don't want them to be upset, do we? Now, where are we? We're now on Treasury Management. Who's moving that?
I'll move that.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
And somebody seconding that?
Seconded.
Thank you. And are we in agreement with that? Agreed. Thank you. And then we've now got town twinning. And I think Councillor Dear would like to move this.
Yes,
Go ahead.
Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, it's gone 9 o'clock and all the council hands will advise you it's not safe to make a long speech and keep members from their drink. So I don't want to be lynched. All I would say is that I present this report which outlines our arrangement for the completion of twinning arrangements with Kathmandu. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is someone seconding that? Thank you. And agreement. Is in other bodies?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I would just like to tidy up with a couple of just minor errors on there. So one is an appointment of Councillor Paul Driscoll to the West London Waste Authority. And another one is the appointment of Councillor Young to Scrutiny Panel 4, and not Councillor Kumar, as I believe is incorrectly stated on the papers. Thank you.
Agreed. So are there no other urgent matters? No? Oh, well, thank you very much. And thank you all for being so succinct. Can I just say that I have to thank Councillor Kumar's residents in Gordon Road for a very generous donation just recently. It's very kind of them. That's very good of them to do that. And of course, I'll expect all of you to attend some of my events after the summer. And can I then end the meeting and sorry? Oh yes, I do intend to. You're all very welcome to come up and have a drink of whatever sort you favour and a little nibble.